Hello, my friends, hello. Wish you all the best and hope I can help you relax today. I am Weetle, and today I am going to be doing a rambling about some epic movie finals, series finals type of stuff video. So it's going to be a ramble about movies and TV series finals I have seen. But before we get to that part, I just want to say I hope you've had a good weekend. Hope it's a good new week for you, a great new week even. So yeah, my weekend was mostly good, except for one part, night to Sunday, which was not so good. To make a long story short, I ate something on Saturday evening which tasted delicious, but as it turns out the food did not entirely agree with me, and well, I didn't get to sleep entirely well night to Sunday. But it passed and I feel lots better now. I feel a lot better now. So let's just get to today's content. Wow, there's a lot of dust swirling in the air here, like seriously. It's the sunlight, it illuminates the dust. Anyway, so just relax, my friends. And we'll begin. So we're going to do today two-parters. Essentially what we're going to do is movies, epic movie finals which have been in two parts, so to speak. And in addition we're also going to throw in a television series and the two final episodes of that TV series. So the concept today is epic two-part finals. And all of them deal with various epic major situations, but they're all fictional, of course. So let's just get the first movie, okay? Now, you can see here, this is Pirates of the Caribbean. At World's End, it's slightly dusty. I should have de-dusted it because the sunlight sort of illuminates the dust a little too much. But this is Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End. I'm just going to put that back now. And 2 decades ago, the Pirates of the Caribbean and its first 3 movies were all the rage. They were like super popular. The pirate genre really had a great revival and a golden age 2 decades ago because of these movies. And the 2 movies, Dead Man's Chest and At World's End, kinda are 2 movies that are very tied together. They're kind of part 1 and part 2 of each other in a sense of way. They deal with, I won't spoil too much today, I won't spoil all the details, but the 2 movies, well, they deal with, each of the 2 movies deals with slightly different plots, but the plots of the 2 movies are tied together. In Dead Man's Chest, Captain Jack Sparrow, played excellently by Johnny Depp, sort of has to try to evade that because he owes a debt to the infamous ghost pirate Davy Jones. Well, he's not a ghost exactly in the movie, but to that infamous legendary pirate ghostly figure Davy Jones. And Jack Sparrow and his crew goes on lots of adventures and stuff, and Jack Sparrow does all he can to sort of avoid this horrible fate and to be taken by Davy Jones' horrible beast, the Kraken. So that's just a short description of the first movie. not of the second movie in the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise. At the same time, a man named Beckett, Lord Beckett, wants to sort of end all pirates. So he is kind of one of the villains of the movie. He wants to sort of end all pirates and sort of establish a anti-pirate type of regime. And in the third movie, it deals with Beckett sort of starting to do that and kill off pirates and sort of establish a regime on the sea. And there are lots of complications during this. David Jones is heavily involved in this. I'm trying not to spoil too much, but to cut a long story short, these are two very epic movies, and they were huge box office successes in their time. And yeah, so the two movies end at World's End. It ends with sort of epic final battle, involving David Jones and Jack Sparrow and lots of the figures from the franchise. So if you're into pirate movies, I'd heavily advise, if you're into the pirate genre, I'd heavily advise watching the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise, particularly the first 3 movies, because, well, it's funny and it's also kind of epic. So, but let's move on to the next. So this is Avengers Endgame, and people who are familiar with Marvel is probably familiar with this. And now we're really getting into the epic 2-part finals. So Infinity War and Endgame are also 2 movies that are tied together. They're both Avengers movies. They're the 3rd and 4th Avengers movies, and they're also tied together. So I won't spoil the details, but in Avengers Infinity War, the Mad Titan, the main villain of the movie, Thanos, who is seen slightly, I'm not sure you can see him, but here, you can see him here, wants to collect the powerful Infinity Stones to erase half of all life in the universe, to sort of bring balance to the universe, and the Avengers have to stop him, and there are lots of complications and lots of battles and stuff in Infinity War. And in Endgame, well, the Avengers have to sort of try to correct their mistakes from Infinity War in a way. I don't want to spoil the details if there are people who haven't watched it, because I'm not going to spoil the details. But to make a long story short, the Avengers have to find a way to fix everything in Endgame. And this movie also actually involves time travel and stuff like that. It's really epic, and it culminates in an epic final battle. And this is really an Avengers Infinity War and Endgame is a really epic major story. It's sort of Marvel at its height. Actually, not a sort of, it is Marvel at its height. So if you want epic superhero culmination stuff, well, then this is for you. You should probably watch some of the other Marvel stuff before you watch Infinity War and Endgame, especially the first 2 Avengers movies. But yeah, it's really great, and a really great crossover event. And it deals with a situation where you have this mad guy who wants to sort of put the universe into a really difficult position by erasing half of our life. And of course the Avengers really having to give it all to stop it from happening. Well, and then in Endgame trying to fix everything. So yeah. Maybe I spoiled slightly there, but I hope I didn't spoil too much. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next thing now. And by the way, There's actually, I'm just going to add what there's actually a new epic 2-part Avengers story coming up, which will be released a few years from now, and that's Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars. Most people assume, including me, that those two movies will also be tied together, and they will apparently feature the famous Marvel villain Doctor Doom as its main villain. But that's a different story for another time. So the next we have Loki. Now we're moving on to a television series, and we're moving on to the Marvel Multiverse saga. So this is actually the first season, but I'm going to talk about the second season. So in Loki, to just again make a long story short, Loki in the first season encounters, the Time Variance Authority, and the TVA, they rule time, they essentially decide what gets to happen and stuff like that. And then during the course of the first season, yes, there are going to be some spoilers here because I have to spoil this to make sense of things. I'm just going to put this away. So during the events of the first season, Loki and an ally he finds during the first season, Sylvie, who is also a Loki variant, by the way, a female Loki variant, or version, essentially. But they sort of find out what's behind this entire oppressive time regime, and then sort of breaks free the multiverse, allowing various timelines to exist. But things turns out to be a little more complicated than that, because in season 2, as the new timelines have been opened, as evidenced by the Marvel show What If and Loki season 2 and various stuff, it turns out that there is some sort of temporal loom in the basement of the TVA, which sort of seems to now be about to explode, and which can really threaten everything, the entire multiverse, and all the newly opened realities. And now I'm going to have to spoil here, because we're going to talk about the final 2 episodes of Loki season 2, because they are very epic. At the end of episode 4 of season 2, and yes, we're going to be spoilers here, even though we're trying to stop the temporal loom from overloading, it doesn't work. The entire thing explodes, and the TVA and time itself and everything is just dissolved. But somehow Loki survives the dissolution of this, and he finds himself in episode 5 in the TVA chambers, which are now sort of dissolving into, well, spaghetti. Sorry. Or not fingless or whatever. Sorry, it looks kind of like spaghetti in the episode. Anyway, but it's at least it's dissolving. And Loki is trying to find his friends from the TVA, but now they're sort of displaced, and we're back in their original timelines, and we don't remember the TVA anymore. So Loki sort of has to travel between the various timelines to try to fix everything. Only it gets worse, because soon the entire multiverse and all the newly open timelines starts to be destroyed by this force. And Loki has to find out what is going on before his friends and all realities and everything disappears, with the exception of the Sacred Timeline. The Sacred Timeline, which is essentially the main timeline of the Marvel universe, is actually safe, which we find out in the final episode. So this is a really epic final, where really the entire multiverse is at stake. There are really high stakes in this final. So which is very impressive for a Disney Plus television series, because usually they usually do more limited stakes in those television series, but this is really one of the more epic finals. So let's move on to the final 2-parter epic final. Well, the final one we're going to be talking about today anyway. Harry Potter and Deathly Hallows Part 2, and this is literally Part 2. Harry Potter Deadly Hallows Part 1 and Harry Potter Deadly Hallows Part 2 are some of the most successful movies of all time, undeniably, especially Part 2. Especially Part 2. And this epic two-part final deals with a very difficult situation for the wizarding world. You can see here. So as many of you probably already know, Harry Potter is a story set in, well, the wizarding world. Essentially, it's about a boy who finds out he has magic, goes to a wizarding school called the Hogwarts, gains friends, learns potions, magic, stuff like that. Only to find, but he also finds out that he is the boy who lived because he survived a killing curse by a dark wizard known as Voldemort. And this is a story that sort of goes on throughout the 6 books and 6 movies. But we are not going to be talking about all of that other stuff now. But in the 7th and 8th movie, which is essentially the 7th book made into 2-part movies, things really come to a climax, because in those movies the Dark Wizard Voldemort was called the Dark Lord, or he who must not be named, gains control of wizarding society and starts to implement a very dark, supremacist wizarding regime. And this wizarding regime is essentially controlled by dark wizards and Voldemort's followers, and they regard that people who are muggles, essentially non-magic people, and people who are born from non-magic people are inferior to wizards and witches. They are of lesser blood, and both they can be killed and they have no value. So they start to kill, they start to do some awful stuff to people who are essentially what's called by these wizards mudbloods, essentially people who are born into the wizarding world but does not have magical ancestry or magical parents. And of course we also have a very condescending view of muggles, non-magic people. They believe that wizards and witches should rule the world, and they're starting to implement that regime. In Wizarding Britain, in these 2 movies. At the same time, Harry Potter has to sort of find bits of Voldemort's soul to sort of stop him and destroy him, and he has, of course, good help from his friends Ron and Hermione. But we also have to evade the dark wizarding regime, which has taken control of their world. So it's a very dystopic wizarding situation. It's definitely the darkest era of the entire, I know the entire Harry Potter. I have read a lot about the Harry Potter and wizarding timeline, and this is probably the darkest era of the entire timeline. So yeah, because this is a wizarding world run by the Dark Lord Voldemort, and that's of course not a light world. Because Voldemort and his followers, they hate non-magic people, and the people born from non-magic people. Anyway, so, and it all culminates in Deadly Hallows Part 2 with a major epic battle at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry against the Dark Wizard Voldemort and his followers, the Death Eaters. So it's, I'm not going to spoil the details, but it's a really epic sort of final battle, and it sees the characters of the wizarding world really thrown into a really difficult time and situation, and actually a rather terrifying situation, to be honest. So yeah, in a way you can say that the 2 final movies, they are a little more mater than what has come before. But of course, it's essentially that old but well-known story about the epic battle between darkness and light and darkness. Light. Yeah, so I hope you enjoyed me just rambling on about epic two-part finals and just me talking about things I've seen. Yeah. Now, wish you all the best, truly all the best, and a great week, my friend.